Hi everybody, this is Nina Holloway with the Cannabis Department. We are just going to give you guys a few minutes to settle in, and Kristen will be joining us in just a moment.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Nina, for getting us started. We're going to give everyone, our attendees, a few minutes to join this morning's meeting. So we will start in with our agenda at 8:35. This is Kristen Ebel. I'm Director of the Mendocino County Cannabis Department, and thank you so much for joining us on our April 22nd, 2022 weekly public meeting. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's 8:35. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. So thanks, everyone, for joining. It is April 22nd. This is Kristen Nevedal, Director of the Mendocino County Cannabis Department. And with us today, we have Nina Holloway, who is assisting us in hosting the meeting this morning and making the stream possible. So thank you so much, Nina, for your assistance. Let's see here on the screen. Here we go. So a little different agenda today. We're going to have, we already went through the time to settle in. We're going to talk a little bit about updates, And then we will talk about staffing and projected application review timelines, and then we'll have public comment, and that'll wrap us up for the day. Participation in today's meeting. I just want to remind folks that there is a Q&A chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. It has a little chat box and says Q&A under the chat box. If you just click on that little icon, it will pop open a text box where you can enter messages in. Oh, my screen is not sharing. Well, good gosh, let's do that. And so give me a little minute to pop some things up over here. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. And thank you, Nina, for the reminder. Do this. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen now. Okay, so let's go back. I'm here. Okay, so agenda. We'll talk about updates, and then we'll spend the remainder of the meeting talking about staffing, projected application review timelines, and then we'll have some public comments. So a little different agenda today, but the reason for that will become apparent very soon. Participation in today's meeting. So just a reminder, at the bottom or the top of your screen, you should have a toolbar, probably located at the bottom of your screen if you're on the Zoom app. In that toolbar is a Q&A feature. It says Q&A and has a little double chat box icon above the Q&A. If you click on that, it will open up a chat box where you can type in questions or comments. Only panelists can see your question or comment until the question or comment has been answered by our panelists. And so then you can see them in the answered questions section of your open Q&A chat box. When we do get to public comment, we're going to ask folks who would like to make a verbal public comment to raise their hand, please. If you're in the Zoom app, you can raise your hand by using the hand icon, raise hand feature, located probably at the bottom of your screen. It just looks like the palm of a hand. If you're calling in today and not on the Zoom app, you'll be able to raise and lower your hand by using *9. And likewise, if you're calling in today and not using the Zoom feature, you should be able to mute and unmute your phone when we call on you for verbal comment by using *6. And we'll repeat this when we get to public comment, but just a reminder as we get going. Important dates. So on April 18th at 9 a.m., we unlocked the folks who were eligible for 30-day corrections portal so they could make any final corrections that they might need made or need to make. On April 19th, we saw the comment period for draft permanent regulations at the state closed. So those comment periods are closed. The Department of Cannabis Control will be reviewing comments, and then we can expect another comment period to be announced once they've reviewed those comments and accounted for them. We held our LEAP monthly meeting on April 20th. That meeting, all of that information will be posted soon come. I don't think the slides are up yet, but the slides will be posted as well as the YouTube video, and you'll be able to find that information if you missed the LEAP meeting on the 2022 Cannabis Department events page. Important note from the meeting on the 20th is that there is a timeline slide that we inserted into that presentation. We put a timeline slide in the February presentation. I'm still getting lots of questions about it, so it's been gently or slightly updated or modified and was reinserted in the April 20th meeting. So if you have questions about the timeline for direct grant processing, please do refer to the April 20th slides when they are posted, and then you'll be able to see the timeline, which should help clarify questions for folks. This is the April 22nd MCD weekly public meeting. I want to remind folks that on April 28th at 11:59 p.m., the 30-day corrections portal closes. We have canceled our April 29th weekly meeting. So we will be starting corrections of the corrections portal on April 29th, and we will not be meeting that day. So this has been noticed here and is noticed on the website. April 29th is also the last day for submitting tax appeals to the Cannabis Department. Any tax appeal you want to submit for the 2021 tax year must be received by the Cannabis Department by no later than 4 p.m. on April 29th. And then just a quick reminder that May 31st is the last day to submit true-up payments to the TTC. And you can write up through that date, come in and do a waiver for that true-up. It's super easy. It just takes a few minutes unless there's a line. But the forms are in the lobby and they're also on the website. So it really doesn't take much to do it. May 13th, we will be having a Zoom meeting. We had talked about this previously and set aside that date. It is a Friday. We'll do 8:30 to 10, and we had talked about using that for some CEQA discussion. So we will still be holding the May 13th, 2022 CEQA meeting from 8:30 to 10 a.m. As I mentioned, it will be held via Zoom, and the login information and more details will be posted to the 2022 Cannabis Department events page. We are in the process of scheduling a series of in-person meetings. We anticipate having multiple agency involvement at those meetings. They will be less meeting-like and more sort of ask your questions at the station sort of format. We'll give you more information as we get the venues scheduled and the dates for us to be in those venues scheduled. And we will be doing kind of a roadshow or a tour of the county to help make this opportunity accessible to hopefully everyone. So we're anticipating multiple agency involvement. We'll have planners available to discuss Appendix G checklist development, and department staff will be available to assist with direct grant application development. A few department updates. The front counter is open. We keep reminding you, but here we are again. Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we close the front counter daily from noon to 1 so staff can take a break for lunch. LEAP waivers are posted to the Forms and Resources page. They're all right here under LEAP waiver forms, okay? We also have them in our front lobby. So there's a materials box in the front lobby, and each of the fee waivers or LEAP waivers, each of those forms are available in the lobby. The lobby is open longer than the counter hours, so there won't be anyone at the counter at 8 a.m. Not till 10 a.m. does counter staff arrive to or become available to serve folks at the counter. But the lobby is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. if you want to come in and grab a form or need a form because you're heading over to PBS or whatever the case may be. The tax appeal form is on the website on the Forms and Resources page. We can go back over there and go here to Forms and Resources. Forms and Resources. And down here, business tax appellant process, tax appeal form. So the tax appeal form is available on our website. In order to submit a tax appeal, and there's instructions here on the form itself, you need to bring in a completed form with a fee of $282.87. You need to bring in your true-up statement and evidence that no cultivation occurred in 2021. Incomplete appeal materials will not be accepted. And in order to file for an appeal, your completed materials must arrive at the department no later than 4 p.m. on April 29th to be considered. And by complete, I mean the fee must be submitted. The completed notice of appeal form the tax true-up statement, and the evidence of no cultivation in 2021. Some department staffing updates. This is what we have going on. So I joined the department, the program, as the program manager in March of 2021. William Riley joined us as the program administrator in November of 2021. Audrey Gardner joined us as our department analyst in February of 2022. Nicholas Duncan joined us as a planner, now a planner 2, and he joined the program in July of 2018. Gabriella Eaton is also a planner 2 who joined the program when it was the program in February of 2019. Tara Ryan will be joining us as a cartographer planner in May of 2022. Diana de los Santos joined us as a planner 1 in December of 2021. Angela Lane joined us as a planner tech 2 in April of 2022. Nina Holloway joined us as an administrative assistant in February of 2022, and Geneva Beeman joined us as a staff assistant in December of 2021. That puts us at 10 staff in our building right now, and we have some open positions. So we have not filled the department manager position. That manager position has not been recruited for. The current job description of the manager position is very similar to the chief planner position. So we're evaluating that currently. We haven't filled the chief planner position simply because we haven't had interested candidates or qualified candidates to interview from. The same is true for the senior planner position. We have 6 planner positions open and need some space before we can consider bringing additional planners on. We have an open position for an office services supervisor, an administrative position open, and a staff assistant position open. We're wrapping up the request for qualifications, otherwise known as the RFQ. The RFQ requests that interested parties or parties interested in assisting with the processing of phase 1 and phase 2 applications, renewal applications, and Appendix G checklist, please submit their qualifications to the county. The date of issuing this RFQ is to be determined, but it's very close. And with that, we anticipate a timeline for contracting with qualified individuals or firms to be around September of 2022. Some information about application statuses. I want folks to be aware that these statuses are made public. They are available on the Cannabis Application Portal System page right here. And you can go down to the portal list and you can see the statuses by AG number, just like we had posted them previously for the portal in August through November. The state has received this same information, but it is updated weekly with the state. So we keep a running list of the status of applications. And on that list currently, we have 143 applications listed in good standing, 163 that have been completed via the portal, meaning that the department has 306 completed in good standing applications currently to process. 325 folks are eligible for the portal. That's 6 more than we talked about, or 9, let's see. It's a few more, 6 more than we talked about during the board meeting. Those numbers are changing as folks are being cleared from vegetation modification. So we've continued to have some folks cleared for vegetation modification, which brings up this eligible number and brings down slightly the ineligible number of 159. We did assign back in 2021 647 applications to the portal. Out of those 647 assigned to the portal in 2021, 519 responded and 128 failed to respond. Number of applications that have responded to the corrections portal, less than a third. We're at 102 currently. There are about, let's see, today is the 22nd. there's 6 days left. So I certainly hope that 102 number skyrockets over the next 6 days. But if you have questions, please do not hesitate in getting those sent into us. Local authorization. There is no blanket May 5th deadline for provisional licenses. I want to repeat, there is no May 5th deadline for provisional licenses. The Department of Cannabis Control considers applications with the following statuses to be eligible for a provisional license: those that are in good standing and those that have complete applications through the portal. The DCC is holding applications open for applications with portal eligible status on the list that they receive. This was confirmed after Tuesday's board meeting. Processing corrections portal submissions, contrary to statements made at the Tuesday Board of Supervisors meeting, this will not take 6 months. We will be splitting planning staff, with half of our planning staff starting corrections portal reviews on April 29th of 2020. Well, that should say 2022. My bad. Sorry about that. But half of our planning staff will start corrections portals the day after we close. So instead of having a meeting on April 29th of 2022, we will be here digging into our correction portal submissions for review. We expect to complete these reviews by the end of May. I think that that's a very realistic timeline. And as I mentioned, we're splitting our planning staff. So the other half of our planning staff who will not be working on corrections portals will remain focused on renewal cleanup, modification applications, transfer applications, etc. And then after we complete the corrections portal reviews, we're going to be moving on to in good standing applications. Planning staff will start the review of in good standing applications in June after we complete the corrections portal submissions. If you're an in good standing applicant, I would expect to get some form of correction notices. The materials that were submitted for during the corrections letter period is what led to the status of in good standing. But that program ran in 2022, so it's likely we'll be asking for some updated information and just that folks who are in good standing clarify that they haven't changed their or modified their cultivation site. If modifications have been made since the application was determined to be in good standing, a modification application will be required. So processing of applications for issuance and for Appendix G checklists, we anticipate that we'll be processing these applications after we've engaged contract planners. So we're hoping that that will have a start date of September. But again, this will not occur until we have completed our contracts with contract planners and contract planning firms. So at this point, we are anticipating a start date of September 2022 to really dig into processing applications for issuance and working on those Appendix G checklists everyone has been asking about. With that said, we're going to spend about an hour hearing public comment on these items. So I will go ahead. There's a couple questions in the chat box. How many phase 1 cultivators in good standing and current permit holders have achieved a signed off Appendix G? Well, 0 in good standing folks or applicants have achieved a sign up on Appendix G because they are not eligible for Appendix G. So only annual permit holders who also have completed their sensitive species habitat review, their AQMD referral, and have a valid state license are eligible to submit an Appendix G checklist. I think there's been 3 Appendix Gs that have been certified by the county, but we have not reviewed an Appendix G since before the start of the August 2021 portal. So it's been quite a while, and we have quite a few in the queue that do need to be reviewed. We don't anticipate getting to those until September. All right. Answered that one. Will folks in good standing be receiving vegetation modification letters? Yep, if they have modified vegetation, they will be subject to a vegetation modification letter. Just like folks who have complete applications in the portal, we have a few of those identified with vegetation modification. And when we get back into reviewing those, if you've modified vegetation cleared trees, I would expect a vegetation modification letter will be sent to you. What about staves and withdrawals? What is their status? Well, if you're on a notice of application stay, you should not be cultivating because that's part of the agreement with your notice of application stay, but we can still process your application, and those are not in the portal. Those are outside of the portal currently because they have been stayed. Withdrawals are not eligible for application review. Those applications no longer exist. So once you withdraw your permit or your application, there is no way to reinstate that withdrawal. If you choose to or would like to have a commercial cannabis cultivation permit or nursery permit at your site, you would have to apply under phase 3. Question about when folks who have submitted stays or withdrawals will hear from the county. We are currently kind of putting those into a box and then processing them in chunks. So we are working through a number of stays, non-cults, withdrawals that have been submitted. And as we process them, we will ensure that we respond to the applicant and their agent if there's an agent associated with the submittal of that stay, withdrawal, or non-cult, and notify both parties. So we are working through those currently. Any update on the creation of an appeals process for denials? County Council did update the public and the board during the Tuesday, April 19th Board of Supervisors meeting, and they are still working on it and hoping to be bringing back, it sounds like, an appeals proposal in the second, during the second meeting in May is what they're shooting for currently. It will be in ordinance form, so it's going to need 2 readings, it sounds like, at the Board of Supervisors, and then would likely not be effective until July, is what I believe they reported back. What is the purpose of a veg mod review going to County Council, and what happens when it goes to County Council? Well, veg mod reviews go to County Council because staff has questions about how to proceed. And what happens when it goes to County Council? We wait for guidance so we can understand better how to proceed. So we do this a lot. We do a lot of work directly with County Council and outside counsel to make sure that we proceed in a manner that's appropriate and in alignment with Chapter 10A17 and Chapter 20.242. If we have a pending renewal, when would be the recommended time to submit our Appendix G if it is recently completed? After our renewal is complete? And I would say yes, after the renewal is complete, because you really want to make sure that the Appendix G lines up 100% with what's in the issued permit. We can't process an Appendix G if there's discrepancies. So just an example of what I'm talking about is if we get an Appendix G that's for mixed light cultivation, but your permit is for outdoor, we can't process that Appendix G because it's not analyzing the outdoor activities that your permit is for. It's analyzing specifically mixed light cultivation, which, right, is a mismatch situation. So I really think the best thing to do is to complete your renewal and then submit your Appendix G, just because you want everything to align. All right, that's very important with the Appendix G checklist. Question about Appendix Gs. So for early adopters or people who have annual permits issued by the county, but those permits were issued before an SSHR and an AQMD forms were available, or that process had been figured out, folks can't prepare that Appendix G until the county has completed the SSHR review and the AQMD referral process. How long might it take the county to process these forms so that we can continue on the Appendix G? Well, you can no longer renew your permit without completing those materials. So previous way of doing things really was to renew the permit and then send the forms and hope they came back in a timely manner, so staff could then process the Appendix G and the AQMD and the SSHR materials. We are recommending for renewals a 60-day submission. So please submit your renewal 60 days before it expires, because that gives us plenty of time to get folks through that SSHR and AQMD process before that permit expires. And this is really important. We really need to make sure that we're getting renewals tidied up so that the annual permit holders have the ability to submit those Appendix G materials, so that as soon as we can start reviewing them, they're in here in the department and we can start moving through them. So I think if you're have not conducted your SSHR and your AQMD, we really want you to, especially in that instance, submit your renewal 60 days ahead of time so we can process those materials while we're processing the renewal application. That is the most efficient time for us to do that processing, is together, okay? So please do get those materials to us with your renewal. The forms are on the website. And then once you come through that renewal period, you should have all the information you need to wrap up that Appendix G and get it back to us or over to us for review. Let's see, reading this question just to make sure that I can say it and it makes sense. So how has the question about first come, first serve submissions for the corrections portal. How has the opening of all applications and the county closing of all applications affecting the first come, first serve review of portal submissions? We're not necessarily doing a first come, first serve review of 30-day corrections portal submissions. We're going to do them all together. We'll be splitting them into chunks and assigning them to planners. Planners will start working through those corrections portal submissions, and we will wrap those submissions up, and then we will notify applicants if we need additional information and or if denials are necessary. So a little different process here. We won't have the timestamps. If you submitted your application before the 18th to the corrections portal and then we reopened it at the 18th, I just want to make sure folks know that that will not change any of the documents and the materials you uploaded. Only if you go in after the 18th and make changes to that permit application will changes be noted, right? So the whole reason for opening everyone or unlocking everyone's eligible portal submission on April 18th was we had a number of folks who were really stressed out because they either knew that they had uploaded something in the wrong location or uploaded the wrong document or feared that they had uploaded the wrong document or maybe an inaccurate version of a document. So with that said, instead of trying to kind of track the popcorn of opens and closes and opens and closes. We just did a blanket opening. But if you do not go in after we did the blanket reopening on the 18th and make any changes, your submission will be locked at 11:59 p.m. on April 28th and sent to the department just like you had left it when you originally sealed it in the corrections portal. We're going to go through a few more questions here, and then we'll go to some folks who have their hands raised. So please, again, I do want to just remind folks, if you want to make a verbal comment and or ask a question verbally, we do request that you raise your hand. The raised hand feature is located in your features bar, generally at the bottom of your screen. It looks like just a little hand symbol. If you're calling in and not utilizing the Zoom app, you can raise your hand by using *9 on your phone. You can lower your hand by using *9 on the phone. So please do raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. And I'm going to continue down the list of questions that have come in via the Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom of your screen as well, and located near the hand raise. So follow up to the SSHR and AQMD questions. If they've already renewed without these, should they submit them now and to get review of those materials? Would perhaps be 9 months early. Yeah, no, please don't submit those until renewal. Right now, we aren't prepared to just assign SSHR and AQMD materials. That might change as we get into a more fully staffed situation. But as of today, receiving a bunch of SSHR and AQMD materials, they would have to be assigned to a planner. The planner would have to dig out the application and do a full review of it to make sure that the SSHR and the AQMD materials reflect what's in the application packet. So again, the best time to submit these materials is with the renewal, because this is when the application itself is assigned to a planner. The planner has it open for review and can easily ensure that the SSHR materials and the AQMD materials reflect what is in the permit application. So please do not send those to us currently. We will be requiring those upon renewal. How backlogged is the department in reviewing renewals? We're really backlogged in reviewing renewals. So we've had 3 planners working on renewals. They've also been trying to wrap up vegetation modifications. We've had some vegetation modification identified during the renewal process that they've been working on. We have inspections that have been occurring, which then puts 2 people in the field. And modifications coming in and transfers coming in. So they are backlogged, which is why we will be splitting our staff so that half of our staff will be working on corrections portal and the other half of our staff will continue to work on renewals. All right, so for renewals, does the AQMD need to be submitted annually? No, you do not need to annually submit your AQMD form, but if your AQMD referral requires a burn permit because you've identified that you do some open air burning on your parcel, staff will require updated burn permits upon renewal. So what happens when an Appendix G applicant, right, this is a great question, I love this question, has an annual permit for cultivation, but a second permit is in application form for a nursery, right? They're on the same parcel. One's got an annual permit, one's got a nursery application. Appendix Gs really should cover all the activities on that property. So you should be able to submit one Appendix G for both of those activities. And that's really the most efficient way to do it. So you'd want to really wait until we get the nursery permit issued. We are trying to align how we conduct our reviews to ensure that we don't break apart people's cultivation to from their nursery permit per se, and that we kind of keep those more coupled. So we'll be looking at that as we move through our application review processes, so that folks are, the timing is a little more consistent, right, between getting those cultivation permits issued and bringing that nursery along with, so to speak. And again, you really want to make sure that the entire project on your parcel is looked at in that Appendix G. So I would wait for the second permit to be issued and address both in your Appendix G document. What about new registrations for the portal? If you're in the corrections portal and say you had a consultant before and you don't have access to your portal, you need to contact us ASAP so we can set you up and help you, walk you through the steps of registering, creating a new registration in the portal so you have access to conduct your corrections. If you've changed consultants, same thing, get a hold of us immediately so staff can walk you through how to set up a new portal account. You know, and this is a little tricky because when you set up a new portal account, you don't see the files that you previously submitted, right? We can transfer files. So say you had like a consultant that was working with you and you have 99% of your application is complete, just, you know, as an example here, a scenario. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm broke. I need to let my consultant go. But my login for my portal, my corrections portal is, was developed by my consultant. Again, you can contact staff and tell staff like, hey, I have corrections to make. My login was developed by my consultant. This is my AG number. I need a new login. And if you want those files transferred or duplicated into your new account, we can do that. But you'll have to request it. And then again, this kind of goes back to some of the concerns expressed by applicants that folks can't open up those uploads and see what was uploaded. That will be the case. So if we transfer files from the 2021 portal into a new account for someone to make corrections, they won't be able to see exactly what was uploaded. They will only be able to see that the upload occurred, right? So it will be like a completed upload note for each item. And then they can go in and overwrite any item that they need to correct a deficiency for. But again, if you're in this position where you can't get into your portal, or you need to start a new portal account, user account, because you're changing consultants or something has forced a change, please, you need to contact staff ASAP. And the best way to contact our staff about this is to email cannabisprogram@mendocinocounty.org. So again, please do email mendocinocounty.org. Yeah, I know the new renewal application does not ask for AQMD because it errored when I transitioned it from Word doc to PDF and then made it fillable. So I am needing to go back and add AQMD to it and structures list to it, and have not had a time to do it this week. If you submit your materials and that's not on there, we'll just come back and ask you for them anyways. But I'm hoping I'll be able to get that updated over the weekend. This week has been just bonkers busy. And so I have not had any time to go mess with that form that I didn't realize errored until after we had posted it. So apologies there, but we will be fixing that. And if you're in between, we will ask for the additional material. So no worries there. We'll make sure we get that from you when you renew. If you're like in the process of submitting today or you submitted before the form was updated. Okay. What about adding a new consultant on the portal? I think that it's the same thing we already talked about, but you know, you can only have like one user account. So it's not like you can have two different consultants with two different user accounts working on the same permit. They would need to share the login and share, you know, that information. So, you know, if I was a consultant, I could go in and work on it. And then if Nina was the second consultant, she could go in and work on it. But we would share one user, one login for that permit. There's no way for there to be two different user logins for one permit in the portal system. So hopefully I'm understanding that the question, and I'm responding to it correctly, because I'm doing a little bit of reading between the lines, so to speak. Okay, so that takes care of the questions. If there's no consultant and then you add a consultant, the consultant could use the login information and the user account information from the applicant, which is what I would recommend for ease. And the applicant could share that user information with the consultant, and then the consultant could just go in and do that work. If there's really the need to transfer that to the consultant's list of permits, then again, contact Cannabis Program at mendocinocounty.org immediately so we can assist with that change. But the easiest thing to do if you're taking your consultant, you're taking on a new applicant who started their own application through the portal, is to just get their user and login information so you can go into what's already there. That would definitely be the most efficient way to manage it. But we can assist you if you have other needs. Okay. So let's see here. We're going to go ahead and put the timer up. So hopefully everyone can see that. I have two callers with their hand raised. Michael Katz is the first caller. Hannah Nelson is the second caller. But I do want to remind folks, if you want to ask a question verbally, please do raise your hand. If you're not on the Zoom app, you can raise your hand by using the *9 on your dial pad. So we're going to first go to Michael Katz, and then we will go to Hannah Nelson. So Michael, you have the ability to unmute and start your comment.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Happy post 420 to you and everyone in the department. A couple of questions. One, you had indicated a little earlier that you confirmed with the DCC after the supervisors meeting that they are keeping applications open. My first question is, was that information provided in writing? And if so, can that be shared with the community and the ad hoc and the board? Additionally, given the timelines on some of these renewals that are being requested and folks that have been given, even if there's not a broad May 5th deadline, some folks have been given a May 5th deadline for receiving local authorization, to our understanding. So is it your understanding that the county cannot provide local authorization for those folks or until the portal has actually closed? And then is in this time period between now and if it's possible by the end of May for all 300 something applications to be viewed, does that mean that no one who is getting this pause on their renewal of their provisional, will those folks all still be getting their provisionals if they get through the process? Like, how far out has this conversation gone with the DCC, and can that information be shared? Because we're concerned that this could actually lead to people losing their provisionals. The other question is, will the department be letting the state know for notice of application stays, non-cultivation, et cetera, that those cultivators have lost local authorization? And if so, or if not, have people been made aware of that? And what is the process that happens once people do file for an NAS or non-op? Thank you.
Okay. Confirmation that applications will be held open was submitted in writing, and we will not be sharing the email publicly. Renewals. We are working through renewals. Renewals still have local authorization while they are in process. Local authorization for those with portal eligible status. It's not a matter of whether or not we provide local authorization. The state has determined that folks who are currently completing their applications through the corrections portal are not immediately eligible to receive a provisional license. So how long will those applications be held open? We are having regular communications with the state. They know what we anticipate our timelines to be, and they have been graciously working with us. In regards to NAS and non-cultivation, we are reviewing the ordinance currently to see what is a policy decision versus an ordinance requirement, and we are hearing and sympathetic to issues that may come up around the revocation of local authorization. So as we continue to conduct that review, currently we are not notifying the state that there's no local authorization. However, NAS and non-cultivation are statuses that the state sees on the worksheet. We are reviewing the policies and the what's in the ordinance to see if we can make some adjustments so that those programs are more appealing and helpful to folks utilizing them. But for right now, we're just having some conversations with County Council, and I have that review of both programs on my to-do list. We will go to Hannah Nelson, and then I do not see additional hands raised. So if you do want to make a verbal comment, we do ask that you raise your hand. That raise hand feature should be located at the bottom of your screen if you are on the Zoom app. If you're not on the Zoom app, we request that you use *9 on your phone, which will raise your hand so that we can put you in the queue. We have Hannah Nelson will be next, followed by Julia Carrera, and then Amy Nguyen. Hannah, you should be able to unmute your device and start your comment.
Thanks, Kristen. First question is, if people, while the following, whether it's a tax credit or other adjustments are being debated and instituted, if people are in fact following, because this is the time that they would otherwise start planting, what should they do regarding what evidence might be needed in the future? And could you publish a specific list of evidence so that people are not in the situation that they were in with the veg mod, where all of a sudden a different set of evidence is required after the facts? That way people will have what they need to establish proper following and not have to just rely on the tax appeal process after the fact, which will cost them money. And then with respect to expired annual local permits, what is the state told about those? Because people are concerned that if they have a state inspection and all they have is an expired local permit, even if they've submitted their renewal information, because the department's so far behind, that could be a concern. Finally, will you actually well, actually, two questions. Will you, if somebody has already submitted and closed their portal, and then they realize that their state license expired, so they reapplied because they couldn't revive it, how should they deal with that? Should they email it to you, or what should they deal? How should they deal with that? And then, will you provide affirmative local authorization for all who are in the portal process that have not been denied?
Go ahead and see if we can click these off here. Fallowing. So as we're working on, or County Council is working on a fallowing ordinance, I strongly recommend that you document any areas of your cultivation site that you are not planting and will not be planting, and that you do that on a regular basis. Best way to do that really is to take a picture of, if it's an outdoor field that you haven't planted, take a picture of that field and then take a selfie if you can, or hold in the frame of that picture a newspaper, like a current newspaper showing the date. And I would do this repeatedly. I would probably do it like once a month. At this rate, I don't think the fallowing ordinance will be effective until June or July is what we heard during Tuesday's meeting. So document. So the best thing to do is to photograph a series of time-stamped photos, right? Newspapers are really easy, but you need to make sure that the date of the newspaper is legible in the photo. So you can take a picture of the hoop house and then take a picture of the hoop house holding the newspaper, so we can see that over the period of time between spring and the fallowing ordinance standing up that you did not plant that area. The fallowing program that we've been working on does allow for 2022 retroactive fallowing if you file your fallowing request within a window of time that we're still kind of working out, but we are making sure that the fallowing ordinance does have the ability for folks to file for the 2022 year. We also recognize that some folks may choose to cultivate one or two harvests this year, which is why we're asking and suggesting the repeated documentation, and then may choose to fallow and not plant in July for a second round, perhaps, or a third round in August, whatever the timeline might be. And then we can talk about a partial fallowing and what kind of tax benefit might be available for a partial fallowing. So please, we are just asking people to document if you are fallowing. I don't know if we'll be able to get a page up about that. That's a good question. I have to think about that a little bit because I don't really have a fallowing plan, and then putting together a page might be a little cart before the horse, but we'll ponder that here at the department and see what we can do to get that information out. But document, and make sure that the dates are included in your documentation. A newspaper, again, is a great way to do that. Do make sure that the date is legible in your photos that you take. If you have an expired annual permit, but you've submitted a renewal, the status that goes to the state is that the renewal is in process or progress, has been submitted. And so the state considers that locally authorized. So I wouldn't worry too much about your expired permit if you've turned your renewal in, because they have local authorization, because the state can see that we are working through the renewal and considers that locally authorized. What do you do if you have a hiccup in your license and it expired while you were working through your corrections and then you had to reapply? This is a tough one. I think that we're going to come back and ask you for that after when we do our corrections. And then I'm hoping there's not too many of those. So we'll probably have to address this on a case-by-case basis. But if you didn't apply or renew, if you didn't apply for an annual license before the March 30th deadline, you are likely not eligible for a provisional unless you are an equity applicant, which means you have until June 30th to apply for your annual license and qualify for a provisional. So this might, the answer to this question might have some considerations like, is the applicant an equity applicant? Can we, is there going to be an extended timeline that makes them eligible for a provisional after that March 30th date? I don't know the answers to that without more information, but we would just be working through that with applicants on a case-by-case basis after we and during the review of the corrections. We provide statuses to the state. The state determines if those statuses and the place, the progress that has been made, especially for applicants, meets their requirements for the issuance of a provisional license. So again, I do not have any ability to say, hey, all of these folks who are in the corrections portal, they're all locally authorized. The state knows their status, and the state has determined that they are not eligible for provisional licenses until their applications are completed. That is not the department's determination, it's the state's determination. So I can't just contact the state and be like, hey, you're wrong. All of these incomplete applications do meet your requirements for provisional licensing. That's not our place to do that. We will now go to our next caller, which will be Julia Carrera, followed by Amy Nguyen, and then Ron Edwards. So Julia, you should be able to unmute your microphone and start your questions.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you for this fabulous meeting. I have to say, in my experience, this is the best weekly meeting you've ever had. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for talking about policy. My question is, last meeting you talked about a soft hiring freeze, and thank you for showing all the staff when they were hired, etc., and you're anticipating staffing up. But with regard to that soft hiring freeze, isn't that just waiting for the end of the fiscal year? Doesn't the county want to wait till the end of the fiscal year to see where they're at before they hire new staff? Because I'm hearing this across the departments, not just with cannabis, that that's what's happening. And could you clarify that that's happening here also? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thanks for those questions, Julia. When this came up in Tuesday's board meeting, I re-listened to our previous Friday meeting where we first discussed this. And I did use the term soft hiring freeze and also stated that it's really a pause while we complete the budget process and make sure that we are adequately funded to bring on the additional staff we hope and have been allocated to bring on. And also, the county is in the middle of a space assessment. So the space assessment is not just a space assessment for cannabis, it's an assessment of all county-owned properties, all departments and divisions, and the number of staff they have, and how to make the most out of the structures, the buildings, the space that the county has. So we currently have 10 staff in 5 offices. Okay, actually that's 1, 2, 3, in 5 offices. So we are really needing that space assessment to be wrapped up before we can hire more people. I don't have additional offices currently in this building. So again, it's a soft pause while we wrap up some very important components. Budget is one of them, and space assessment. And once we have the clarification from the budget and the space assessment, we'll be able to move forward with our hiring processes. But it's pretty impossible to hire people when the county's budget as a whole is under review, and there's a lot of concern to make sure that the county is fiscally sustainable, right, for the year to come. And then also that space assessment really is probably a little more crucial for our department than the budget right now. But the county is working through processes. They have consultants to assist with these processes, and they're getting really close to completion. So we need to not behave in kind of a cart before the horse manner. We need to ensure that we know we have the space where we're going to be and get desks and desktops and all of those things a staff person needs in place so that hiring staff, the staff that's hired can actually come to work. So yeah, I listened back on that. This is, Julia, you're absolutely correct. So thank you for those questions. Let's see here. We will be going to Amy Nguyen, followed by Ron Edwards, and then Michael Katz. And then after Michael, we'll go back to some questions that have come in to the Q&A feature. So just reminding folks, we have about 25 minutes left in today's meeting. Please do raise your hand if you'd like to make a verbal comment or ask a question. You can raise your hand by using the raise hand feature in the toolbar if you're on the Zoom app, or *9 if you are on your phone. You can also leave us questions in the Q&A feature. At this rate, I anticipate we will get through all questions in the Q&A feature. And so going on to Amy Nguyen. Amy, you should be able to unmute your device and go ahead and start your question or comment.
Thank you, Kristen, and your team very much. And I, as does Julie, I really appreciate the format of today's meeting, being able to get through a lot of Q&A in that feature as well as verbal. So thank you. I have two questions. One, just super quick suggestion, I guess, rather, for staffing. Many of us have been working remotely for the last couple of years. Perhaps the county could consider remote staffing to beef up the cannabis staffing. My real question, or my substantive question, is a follow-up to the Appendix G SSHR AQMD item for the early adopter permit holders. So, for someone who has been renewed recently, but still without the AQMD SSHR having been required, and they're months away from needing to submit a renewal, I imagine they could submit a renewal application now, though it might be perhaps 6 months early, and would that be able to be reviewed relatively, in relatively short order so that we could finish the Appendix G? Thank you.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, let's see if we can get to those. So remote staffing, we are open to remote staffing. However, remote staffing, when you're doing planning work, let me say it this way, working remote when you're doing planning work, the county generally issues laptops to folks who are working remote. So that county device then can access the county share files and the county system. So we set up folks who are working remote with a desktop in-house, so to speak, like in the department, and then they use their laptop to remote into that desktop so they have access to the county permit tracking system, county files, and other county programs that are necessary for conducting a plan review. This can be challenging. Trying to do a plan review on a laptop screen is really hard. I know I've done a bunch of work from home, and it's really hard to be limited to a small screen. I think that we are open to having conversation about whether or not we can set up folks with more equipment to have a better work from home experience, but it's also pretty gosh darn hard to train people when everyone is working from home. We have a bunch of new hires and they're working from home. So it's not a non-starter, but it definitely does have some challenges with bringing new staff on and having them be remote based. But again, not a non-starter, just has challenges. And again, we would still have to have the room to set up their desktop stations. They each would need a desktop station in order to access the county's files and software platforms from their remote locations. So there still are some space considerations for having folks actually work from home. So we still have to set up a workstation for them. It's not unsolvable, but it also doesn't like solve things 100%. please do not send a renewal 6 or 9 months before your expiration date. We wouldn't accept it. I know it's really painful that I'm telling folks that we don't have the capacity right now to just accept permit holders SSHR and AQMD materials so that they can work on their Appendix Gs. We just really don't have the capacity. We need to get through the renewals we have in-house. There's a lot of them. And then we have another huge renewal push that happens in July. We have a significant number of permits that are expired. And that's a lot of the renewals that we have in process right now. I don't feel comfortable or confident that it would make sense to take staff off of processing the renewals we have in-house right now, because most of them are expired permits, to put staff on processing SSHRs and AQMDs for folks that renewed and didn't get those materials in immediately after or during that renewal process. I don't think this will be a long-term position. So I ask that folks bear with us and exercise some patience. But we just don't have the staff to manage corrections through the corrections portal and getting the renewals we have in the queue together, and then adding a bunch of opening and closing of files to conduct SSHR and AQMD form review and those referrals. So just bear with us. We'll get there. I don't think it's going to be forever that we're in this position, but today that's the position we find ourselves in. Appendix G, I think I answered all of those questions. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand, Amy, and we are watching the chat. So if there's more questions, pop them in there, and we have a little more time. So we're going to go to Ron Edwards, followed by Michael Katz, and then Hannah Nelson. Ron, you should be able to unmute your device and start your question or comment.
Good morning. I am glad we have a director that understands cannabis cultivation, which is the basis of my question. Is that if somebody is fallowing, you mentioned that they could take a newspaper picture of the garden that they're not cultivating, but what about legacy genetics? Would they be able to keep, like a small mom out of flowering and in veg, and then maybe just take small clones while they get through this, so that when they do come back, they're not producing a product for sale. It's an immature plant. Is there some type of thinking for that type of situation? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, the fallowing ordinance is under development, but it is the idea that fallowing would allow you to still maintain genetics and also have commercial amounts of cannabis, whether it's plant material or products on your site. All of those are considerations as we're working with County Council to develop the ordinance. And so I do anticipate that there will be a pathway for that. But again, we don't have the ordinance available to present to the public and the board, but that is definitely a consideration. We've heard from the public the need for this. And so it's important that we do our best to develop a robust fallowing program that meets the needs of our applicants and permit holders. So yes, those are all considerations, Mr. Edwards, and hopefully we'll be seeing that fallowing draft in the second meeting of May, or the first meeting of May, sometime in May. And hopefully it includes all the things that the public has noted are really important for the fallowing program. We've got a lot of notes, and we've, like I said, working to include partial fallowing, which would also allow for genetic development and holding while the flower production is fallowed, or a portion of the flower production is fallowed. So, okay, we're going to go to Michael Katz and then Hannah Nelson, and then we'll go back to questions in the Q&A feature. So, Michael, you should be able to unmute your device and start your question or comment.
Great, thanks. This question is more about the vegetation modification letters, and wondering if what is basically the process that the department is using to determine if any vegetation modification, especially if it's nowhere near the actual cultivation site, what is the process being used to determine if there is a concern that results in a letter? Could you respond? That would be great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you modified vegetation or cleared vegetation on the other side of your parcel, right, from your cultivation area, and you have not developed your cultivation area into the area where modification has occurred, we probably would not send you a letter. If you have cultivation like this, and you modified around the cultivation site, you would probably get a vegetation modification letter. There are concerns that vegetation modification may have been conducted for the purpose of developing this cultivation site, because clearing in this manner around the cultivation site could have been done to increase light to that cultivation site, as an example. Additionally, if you are cultivating in hoops and you were told, perhaps by CAL FIRE, to clear around those hoops, that's going to trigger a vegetation modification letter and review, because the act of clearing around hoops and cannabis cultivation related structures in order to permit those structures is clearing for the purposes of developing that cultivation site. So you would get a vegetation modification letter in those instances. I hope that helps. We will be going to Hannah Nelson next, and then back to questions in the Q&A feature. So Hannah, you should be able to unmute your microphone and start your question.
Thanks. And I just want to go back to Amy's question. So as I'm understanding your answer to her, the people who have done the right thing, gotten through everything, had annual permits, but the department didn't figure out that they needed these other two documents until recently, they now are penalized from moving forward with their Appendix G and are not allowed to go ahead and provide the air quality and the SSHQ form in order to have their CEQA consultant be able to finalize their Appendix G materials, because other people are, I mean, it's just stunning to me that there's no process to at least be able to submit that so that things can keep moving given the state timeline. What is the time that's going to be given for people who are in good standing, who might get further correction, since portal people got more than 30 days and that these people were already considered in good standing? And then people who are given veg mod letters and then were put back into the portal, but there are questions still arising. Should those veg mod materials be included with which document in the portal that they're submitting? Should it be with the SSHQ? Should it be with the application? Should it not be submitted at all? It seems like if there are comments in the process of putting them back into the portal, but there were still concerns that had to be looked into, it'd be good to know.
All right, so that was time. I'm going to go ahead and go through these. So SSHR and AQMD, we are not penalizing folks who did the right thing. The policy until recently, and very recently, had been to request the SSHR and the AQMD materials as the permit was renewed and issued. So To the best of my knowledge, this is what planners have been doing for at least a year, probably more like 2 years, is requesting those materials upon the issuance of that renewal. And if folks did not turn those materials in promptly after the renewal and they're still outstanding, it is best to wait until you renew again, because we do not currently have the staff to triage a bunch of SSHR and AQMD materials that come in when we are also working on portal corrections and renewals for folks who are expired. So it's not being penalized, it's what we can manage currently. How much time will folks get who are in good standing? I imagine that they will get 30 days. I don't know how we're going to ask them to submit their materials. I want to have a conversation with IT. They may need to submit their corrections through the portal. I just don't know that yet, and we have until June to create some clarification for the public, and especially for those who are in good standing. So we will get more information out as we get closer to that review timeline. If you have received a vegetation modification letter which held you out of the portal, and then as you cleared up your vegetation modification, you were allowed into the portal, what do? We have the materials that you have sent in attached to your file. We have the 15-day vegetation modification letter that you received attached to your file. We have any exclusionary zones that may have been sent back to the applicant attached to your application file. As far as what you need to submit during the corrections portal, individuals who are submitting through the corrections portal and have been identified with vegetation modification really don't have additional materials to submit, but please do make sure that you check the box for the question on the SSHQ regarding grading and tree removal. Yes. And I think that's about all I have on that topic. Going back to questions in the Q&A box. Can the department use or develop satellite office space to house staff? We are looking into this. So we've also, like, as we're looking at the needs and the space assessment, are there larger rooms available where we could set up kind of like cafe style satellite office space while we're, you know, determining where we land as a final location for the department? This is a multi-department conversation, right? So we are looking into that to see if there's some, you know, kind of temporary space where we can have staff be together, preferably on the administrative campus here. But I don't have those answers currently, but we haven't ruled that out, and we are currently having those conversations. So if, going back to this question about expired licenses, if we're noticing that your license is expired and then you had to reapply as we're doing our corrections, we'll reach out to you. We also have an application list that comes to us regularly. So we have the ability to search your location, your APN number, your permit name, your business name, on that application list. So we'll be searching both the issued permit or the issued license list and the application list as we go through the corrections. So I imagine what will happen in this instance that the question came into the Q&A that we talked about a little bit before, is that we'll see that application pop on that application list. We get an updated application list weekly from the state, so we can see everyone who has a pending application, what their status is, where they are in that process. So, if you're expired and we don't see a new license has been issued, we'll search that application list and see if there's an application there. So you might not even have to do anything. We might just be able to pull over that verification of application off of the state's list, because we do searches on both lists when we're trying to review. Yeah, I agree. There's another remote comment that the small screen size can be addressed by adding larger monitors. So far, the county hasn't necessarily set aside the funds to provide that equipment for folks at home, but we are considering it. And we are having conversations about what, at-home workspaces might look like and what the county can provide and can't provide. And this also ties into the budgetary conversation. So, that's a more expensive setup for a work from home individual. It does increase cost. So we would still also have to have that workstation here in the office. So it would be, instead of doing 2 monitors and a device so folks can work in the office and at home, the county would be having to provide 3 monitors and a laptop and additional keyboard, mouse sort of setup. So it does create some additional expense and need. We have not ruled it out by any means, but we also, like I mentioned earlier, need to complete the budget process and the space needs assessment so that we can have a really solid and strategic plan for going forward. So we are almost there. So if you renewed last fall, when we did renewals, the renewal cleanup in July and over the course of last fall, when the renewal permit was issued, the applicant was asked to immediately submit their SSHR and their AQMD materials. So, right now, we do not have the capacity to process corrections portal applications and the renewals that are expired. So currently, we will not be accepting SSHQs for referrals and AQMD for referrals that are standalone. I understand that this is creating heartburn and pain and stress. We do not have the capacity to change what we can manage currently. We are requesting that folks please do be patient. We are doing the best we can do. Would we please provide more information in regards to forest maintenance, such as dead trees and overhanging limbs along the roadway? What needs to be done for removal? So, document. So I would say the best thing you can do if you have tree maintenance work in and around your cultivation area, your cultivation facilities, your buildings, your cultivation related water sources, water storage areas, etc. Get a licensed professional to come out and document the reasons why you are doing limbing and or vegetation removal, right? On or after May 4th of 2017, vegetation removal of species of concern, those commercial species, true oaks, live oaks, and tan oaks, may only be conducted because of or to promote public health and safety. So if you have diseased trees, dead trees, widowmakers, etc., that need to come down, please do hire a licensed professional to document both the need and the species and the work that is being conducted. That is crucially important. What is the distance in feet from a cultivation site in which vegetation modification does or doesn't trigger? Cultivation site, you remove trees around the cultivation site, it's going to trigger a veg mod. Cultivation site, and I remove trees on the other side of my property, and there's no cultivation related activities over there, does not trigger a veg mod. Okay. We are at 9:59, and so with that said, I think we will go ahead and adjourn today's meeting. We thank you all for joining us. Reminder, no meeting next Friday. Next Friday will be April 29th, and staff will be busy working on correction portal reviews. So Thank you all.